Witch, putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you're watching another episode of Every Which Way. This time featuring Kerr Cuhulain, the author of so many books, but specifically a book called Wiccan Warrior that I recently just found. And many of you know that I am not a Wiccan. I'm extremely non-dogmatic and a little bit anti-religious. I'm very spiritual, but I'm just a little bit allergic to rules and religion. So it really surprised me that I was drawn to this book. But after I got the book and I read it, I realized why I was drawn to it, because Kerr is different. So much of his philosophy is based on martial arts. He's got a very Zen master vibe to him, and his approach is all about creativity and working with chi, energy work, and he emphasizes that magic is not about any tools that you use, that the magic comes from within, and that candles and rituals and tarot cards, things like that, those are focusing tools to help you direct your energy. So even if you're not a Wiccan, I recommend that you stick around. This is a very interesting man with a lot to say, so hang with us. It's a super long interview, but it gets more and more interesting as it goes on, and by the time I was done talking to him, I was ready to start all over again. So hopefully he'll come back and talk to me some more sometime in the future. In the meantime, here he is, Kerr Cuhulain. Enjoy. Hi, Kerr. Welcome to Every Which Way.
Pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am really excited that you agreed to do this interview because I just found you recently. You're brand new to me. I found this book randomly.
Oh, yes.
I am not
this is my second book.
This is your second book. Your first was A Law Enforcement Guide to Wicca?
That's right.
Okay, well, I am not a Wiccan. I don't know why this book, screamed at me to take it home, but it did.
All right.
And I loved it so much. I was shocked. Usually, I've read Wiccan books in the past, and I call myself a witch. I love magic. But usually when I read about Wicca... Oops, hold on, I'm about to lose you. There we go. Usually when I read about Wicca, I'm always a little disappointed because it seems a bit dogmatic to me in a way. And your book really shocked me in that it was kind of the opposite of that. Is that what you intended when you created this Wiccan warrior idea?
Not really. What happened was I am a warrior myself. I've been in law enforcement for 37 years now, and I was in the military before that. But I was noticing an awful lot of people who were also accessing that archetype within the pagan community, not just Wiccan, but other varieties of pagan as well, were kind of being put on the outskirts of the community, not really being included because nobody understood really what that meant, including some of the people who were trying to access it. It was this idea that warrior equals war kind of a thing. And in fact, warrior isn't about using these, it's about using this. It's not about fighting, it's about being effective. Basic Sun Tzu, the best general is the one who wins without engaging the enemy, without doing battle at all. So in the beginning, I started writing about the warrior archetype because there was a lot of misunderstanding about what that meant. And they were people who were accessing that archetype within the pagan community, not just Wiccan, but other pagan faiths as well, were being put in the perimeter of the community, allowed to do security and that sort of thing. You see groups like the Guardians of the Fourth Faith who do excellent work. But they weren't really being included. People figured, well, okay, we'll recognize you, but we don't really know what that means. We don't really feel comfortable having you in here. Because they equate warrior with war. And warrior isn't about fighting, it's about effectiveness. It isn't about these, it's about this. And basic Sun Tzu, it's not about fighting, it's the best general is the person who wins without doing battle. So that was where I started coming into this. But the other thing was, when people started asking me to talk about this, to teach, I would talk about energy, the use of energy in magic. And, people would say, well, what do you mean by that? Okay, well, let me show you. And I do a very simple maneuver to show them how to experience chi. And you have a sea of amazed faces around you, and you're going, oh my. You know, we have people here who have been doing magic for a decade, 2 decades, and they've never felt this. This is not good. This is not good because you've got to feel this or the magic isn't happening. So that was where I went and wrote Full Contact Magic and sort of developed from there. It is in a way simplifying. It's interesting. I have a good fellow author friend who once said to me, I'm going to write this book on advanced witchcraft. And after 2 weeks, wrote back to all of her author friends saying, I don't know what that is. Explain to me what that is. We all said the same thing. It gets simpler. You know, you cut through all of the nonsense, the superfluous stuff, and you get down to what really, really works. And when you get there, really, you find you don't really need very much at all. Basically, all you need is this.
Yes. And, that's exactly what hooked me with your book. That is, you just wrapped up exactly why I was so drawn to your book.
There's an idea that their religion is a one-size-fits-all proposition, and that's not true. If you take 10 people who are Methodist or Roman Catholic or fill in the blank here and ask them all the same thing, what, like, if you're picking Christians, what is Christianity? They'll give you 10 different answers, even though they come from the same church. What happened with Wicca, Druidism, Muslims, anyone. It's an individual path. We have to be used to the idea that it's okay to be different. You know, you put 10 different people in a field, they all witness the same thing. One sees Jesus, one sees Mary, one sees Urzuli, one sees Gaia, one sees a UFO. And then one is going, what are you all looking at? You know, I mean, this is what we're dealing with. We all are looking at the same thing, but because we're coming from different social, cultural, and educational backgrounds, we perceive something different. So that was a part of it, too. Trying to turn it around from here, we're going to introduce you into our faith and have you learn the way we do it, instead of, let's start with you. Let's find out who you are. Let's find out what your power is. Let's find out how your energy works. Let's find your identity. Let's work from there. Because Amber Kay, dear friend, a very good Wiccan author, she once said, once you've said to the world, I'm a witch, you can no longer be a victim, because you just said to the world, hey, I'm powerful, okay? So it's about seizing your power. There's this thing within Wicca, it's called the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, doeth thou will. It's this double-edged sword. And people are generally pretty good at the first part, you know, harm none, except they tend to forget that none includes them in some cases. But it's that second part that they fall down on. It's the second part, do it thou wilt, means reach for the stars. You know, go for the goal. Be all you can be. Carpe diem. You know, that's the stuff that people don't seem to access, even though it's telling them to. It's telling them to use that stuff. And, you know, master this, everything else takes care of itself. And so that's when I really started getting serious about teaching this stuff. And, of course, now I'm the head of an order of knights called the Order of Skaya, and that's basically a foundation of what we do. It's empowering people to help them find their own power and use it. So
it's a lot of women. I was surprised to see too. I thought maybe, you know, that warrior archetype might appeal more to men. I mean, it appealed to me, and I'm clearly not a man. But I was like, wow, look at all those women. That's so cool.
People contact me all the time saying, "Oh, we have this men's group that, you know, want you to come talk to them," and that's cool because we really do have to redefine male, you know, in this patriarchal world of ours. We're a little further ahead at redefining female, but I mean, the order is not a male order. It's for males and females. There's no gender stuff happening in there at all. The only rule that relates to gender within the entire order is that we're having a ritual, and we've got two people running it. If one's male, the other has to be female. We have that polarity. The rest of them, there could be any order and combination you like. But that's the only nod to the idea that we must have both, you know, represented in that instance. So it's an idea relating to knighthood, as I mentioned. The way we came at that was I was the head of Officers of Avalon for 5 years, which is an organization which represents police officers, firefighters, and paramedics who are pagan. And I was getting requests on a weekly basis, several times a week in some cases, from people saying, well, we would like to join. And you'd ask them, well, what are you, fire, police, or ambulance? And they go, well, I'm not any of those. Well, I'm sorry, I can't let you be a member because we represent those trades, but why would you ask me to be a member? I don't understand. And say, well, you're knights. And you start going, oh, okay. Now, why is that happening? And I think what was happening basically is from where Wicca, Druidism, Asatru, all these different modern pagan religions started, it's been mostly 101. It's been people with variations on this is how we basically do this. We've now got to a point where we've built a community. We have 3 generations at least of people who are involved in it, and this isn't enough any longer. People are no longer saying, well, I just do this on weekends, or I do this once in a while. This is their life, 24/7. They want something to commit to. And in this order that I created, they were seeing this. I wasn't sure when we opened our doors back in 2007 whether we were going to get novices or people who had been around for a long time, and it turned out to be the latter. It was people who were looking and saying, this is a path I can commit to. We could see that you have a code of chivalry, and that this is something that we can identify with, sincerity, self-discipline, compassion, perseverance, truth, industriousness, justice, largesse, courage, humility, courtesy, loyalty, honor. These are all things that people could identify with. So that is a large part of what we were putting into I was putting into these warrior books as well.
Yeah, empowerment comes to mind. Personal power, empowerment. So much of what you said, I don't mean to be obnoxious here or facetious, but I do want to ask you, I came to magic by doing energy work, learning about quantum physics and the law of attraction, a lot of new agey ideas, and one day it just occurred to me like, hey, this is magic, And I just started aligning myself with women that I thought were witches throughout the ages, healers, herbalists, midwives, but I've always said I'm very anti-dogmatic and allergic to religion. And when I read your book, I felt like a kinship with you. So I was just kind of dying to ask you, why Wicca? Why a religion? Why an order to things? Why does that matter to you? Why is that important?
Excuse me. You can accomplish great things as a group. Don't get me wrong. I am not trying here to gather followers. If I've done that, I've failed, because in effect what happens in that case is people are drawing their energy from me, their power from me, and that's not what I want. I want brothers and sisters who can stand beside me in strength, which is quite different. We have this thing within the order we call the Song of Skaya, and basically what it is in order, that we happen to be standing that day. Whoever is directing the gathering will start it, and he will say in just a few words, I am, and then words to express their personal power. We each have an I am statement, which is part of our identity. Mine is, I am the sudden silence of the midnight forest. And you go around the group. And you could see how people are now identifying with that inner power and using it. And one of the funny things about this order of knights, you'd expect if you were if we were trying to recreate medieval martial arts or something, or recreate orders of knights like the SCA. And I mean, they're good people. They have a lot of fun with what they do. But we're not doing that. You'd expect that we'd see this heraldry on shields and on banners that's like crossed swords and spears and lions rampant and this sort of stuff. And that is not what you see in the order. We have heraldry. You can go to our website, you can see our roll of arms. But my 2IC, for example, Lady Debonair, her banner is this black field with a branch and 2 chickadees sitting on it. And that really is a representation for her power, because they sing and she does too, So I think we're seeing a true representation of warrior, how it really works in the world. It's not about, again, fighting.
Right.
It's about doing a fearless inventory of everything you are and taking all that and then using that, all of it, to take charge of the world, and steer your course through life. If I go to a person and I say, look, tell me about yourself, they'll generally just make a list. What they'll do is they'll hand me 2. They'll go strengths and weaknesses. And I'll take those, ball them up into the bin, and I'll tell them, look, what I want you to do is stop thinking about strengths and weaknesses. I want you to think about characteristics. Because absolutely everything that you are is useful. You could look at a situation where being stubborn can be a problem, But then you can look at another situation where that's exactly what you need to get across the finish line. Everything can be used. And if you, in a particular situation, are finding that it's not useful to you, it's getting into difficulties, it doesn't mean you're weak, it doesn't mean that you're flawed, it means that you are using it incorrectly and you need to use something else. It's a whole idea of starting to think about you being powerful by looking at yourself in this way. We're in this great society now that predominantly has Abrahamic religions in it.
Yes.
You know, and the way they do things, it's based on guilt. You go through the week and you do things that you know you shouldn't do, that maybe aren't quite legal, that aren't necessarily good for you. And at the end of the week, you feel bad about it. You go into this building, you put some money in a pot, and you go, I'm sorry I did it. And just with those words, you figure you wash the slate clean, and you walk out the door with a big smile on your face, and you go through the week, and you do things you know you shouldn't be doing, and you do things that are illegal, and you do stuff. And you just keep repeating this process. It's all based on guilt. Thou shalt not, you know, in this long list of rules. In Wicca, we do something different. We would express it this way: I will not. That's what the Wiccan Read's all about. It's a completely different thing. It's about taking responsibility for yourself. And if you can do that, release yourself from that guilt thing, you can unleash all kinds of power that's going to do all kinds of amazing things for you.
I remember that part in the book. It's fairly early in the book. That really interested me, and I liked your take on silence, which I've made a video about that. I don't like the emphasis on secrecy. And you talk at length about that, and I was just like, yay! I had to keep putting the book down just so I could be like, woo, fist pumping there.
Well, we have a training blog online, and every single one of our classes, all of our rituals, every single one of them is on there. And when I first did this, people, some senior people, wrote to me and emailed me and said, "Do you realize what you're doing? You're giving your power away." And I laughed. Because they really don't get it. I mean, I'm just handing you a textbook. There's a big difference between that and mastery, you know? Mm-hmm. And there are no third-degree mysteries. Nothing is secret here. You want to know something, I will share it with you. I might tell you, you know, I don't think this is going to work for you yet. But then there's a possibility that works for me isn't going to work for you anyway. You know, it's not a matter of, here's a system that works for everyone. It's a matter of me being your mentor and saying, let's find out how you work. Let's figure out how you can walk your path, but you walk it, you know? The other big thing that I'm trying to say in these books has to do with divinity. You know, I shock people sometimes because I tell them in the 43 years that I've been walking this pagan path, I have never once worshipped the old gods. Not once. Because that implies that they're out there on a pedestal somewhere where I can't touch them, you know, and that's kind of that Abrahamic thing again. You know, they're out there and I'm not divine.
Yes.
It permeates everything.
And it's within.
The gods see the world through my eyes. They work in the world with these hands. I don't worship. I immerse. I connect. I, you know, entrain with divinity. It's part of me. And in the Charge of the Goddess by Doreen Valiente, she says, if you've been looking out there all along for it, you're wasting your time because it's been inside of you all along. And that's true. When we do rituals in the order, we don't say, okay, today we're going to call in these gods. What we do is we say, okay, now it's time for you all to look inside of you and pull out the type of divine, the aspect of divine that you're working with today. Your choice, always, you know. So we invite all kinds of different aspects of divine into our rituals, and it's fun because I've got students that are working with us who are Taoist and they're Sikh and they're, you know, it's not just Wiccan within the order. So,
do you have any atheists?
Yeah, I mean we're part of the steering council for the local interfaith council, you know, working about getting all of these different religions together. Because I'll tell you what, one of the interesting things about the pagan community these days, we've grown. It's the fastest growing religious community in North America. You look at the last two census that happened either side of the border, and we're getting truly large. And the thing about this is there was a time 20, 30 years ago when we were saying, hey, pay attention to me, and you have to understand who I really am, because everyone seemed to think that we're something evil, right? We've gone way beyond that. We've got the eyes of the world now. And we have the ability to do this magic. What we need to be doing now is standing up and showing by our lives how the world could be. We need to be the example. You want this world to be a peaceful place and a better place? Show people how this works. Do it.
Yeah, and you're a police officer, or you were a police officer, and you served on a SWAT team, you worked on child abuse investigation. I think that it's so awesome that you held positions of authority as a pagan. To me, that speaks louder than anything that you could ever say to somebody, to, hold yourself with dignity.
There's a lot of others, if you're going to use the law enforcement community as an example, who are out now. And I mean, there are police chiefs who are Wicca now, fire captains, people holding high ranks within the military. The last time I did a military circle at Fort Lackland down in Texas, this was a year and a half ago, I had 400 people show up in uniform, men and women. So,
wow.
And this is this is quite a large phenomenon now, but we're a different force in the world, and I think we're a force for unity and peace, and demonstrating how you can be strong and be power with, not power over, to use Starhawk's way of putting it. It's not about domination. It's about, sharing power and doing stuff together. And this thing that we're doing with the Order, for example, is showing people exactly how this works. So, it's not my job to create an organization to be the perpetual head of it and have power over all these people. It's my job to help all these people empower themselves and fly, use it. And that brings me a great deal of joy. It's really rewarding to see people transform themselves like this. And I think that's what this religion was meant to do all along. But, to facilitate that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you have a kind of Zen master quality to you, when I'm reading the book. I love, you talk about Bruce Lee, and you bring a lot of martial arts into it. Where did that come from? When did you get interested in that?
Well, I've been a martial artist for years, but the reason that we incorporate that partially is because when you look at other military traditions, medieval knighthood, the samurai, Bushido, they have these codes of chivalry that go along with it. Now, if you're looking at the medieval world, chivalry was something that knights did for each other. It wasn't necessarily something they did for the greater community. It was an old boys network, and there was no chivalry really involved in it. It was not chivalry. It was chevauché. It was burn and pillage. There was one person that came out and actually created the idea of chivalry and meant it to be something that was used for the wider world, and that was Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was King Henry's bride. She was the most powerful of the whole bunch. Richard I and John Lackland. I'm actually related to them. I'm descended from John Lackland.
Oh, how interesting.
So it's funny. People say, "What makes you think you could start an order of knights?" It's in the family. But Eleanor had this idea. She was the person who came up with the idea of the troubadours and all of that tradition that goes around with that. And so that's what we're really trying to connect with here, the spirit of that, and try to make it work this time. None of that violent stuff. This is for everyone. This is a means of going out into the world, and just by your individual actions making a difference. I'll go walking. I did this experiment, going walking around the neighborhood. I was noticing that people come walking towards me, and they don't know me, so they start doing this turtle up, turn their head away. What if he looks at me? What if he thinks I'm threatening him? So they're walking down the street. I'm just going to grab something here. And I always wear hats, right? And so I'll go walking down the street and I'll go, "How do you do?" And within 3 months, even people I hadn't seen before, were doing this back to me, because people started getting the idea that this made me feel good. Maybe I can do this for someone else, and it starts spreading out. This is what I'm talking about. This is what knighthood really is. It's putting that action out in the world so it takes an effect. You open the door. You let the people into traffic. You bring back the idea of politeness, the courtesy thing, which is one of the parts of the code. And you allow people to see that you can make this world a better place. Yeah, there's all kinds of chaos and craziness out there, but to use that law enforcement career as an example, what I was a chaos conductor. You swim through this stuff and you sort things out. And I was a karma accelerator. You go and you cross the line. It's my job to bring karma home to you. It's not a violent process. It's a matter of sometimes containing other people's force. But, there is within, this is another thing that we brought out of martial arts, is you have this old school which is about, this is a discipline, this is about me exploring myself, this is about me developing my personal power and learning how to use it responsibly. And that's a large part of what we're doing. And the other thing is that, goes back to that energy thing I'm talking about. If you're a serious Asian martial artist, you understand about moving chi, and you understand all about energy and magic, because this is just a chi delivery system, is all it is. If you went up to somebody in North America and said, just picked a person random off the street and said, what's a magic wand? They'd say, oh, it's a stick, it's got a star on the end of it. You wave it around, swish and flick, bippity boppity boo. If I walked up to somebody in China who I saw doing Zhanjiang or Tai Chi or something like that in the morning and said, show me your magic wand, they go, oh, you mean one of these? You see, I've just folded my thumb over my fingers. This is a chi cannon. They understand that it's not a stick. They're the source of the power, There's this class that I do where I take a hammer and I put it down on the table in front of the students, and I just look at it. And I go, it's not doing anything, it's just sitting there. Until I pick it up. I can direct kinetic energy, I can pull nails, I can drag nails. It's the same thing with a magic wand. I don't care what it's made of, what color it is, what magical words are inscribed on it, how many crystals and feathers it's got on it. It's a stick. Until you pick it up. It's for energy that's being used here. It's not about magical weapons. They're all focusing tools, they're training wheels. All you need to do magic is what you came into the world with.
Yes.
My definition of magic is 3 words. And if you get this, you can do magic. Qi follows Li is an old Chinese expression. What it means is energy follows intent.
Yes.
That's it. Energy follows intent. You raise energy, you send energy out. So a large part of what I do when I teach is show people how to access that energy, and you see stuff that I'm using that could be recognized from yoga and Zhanjiang, Tai Chi, Qigong, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. We'll have ways to raise that energy. Then all you need to do is send it out.
Yes.
It's magic.
Yes, that is magic. I totally agree.
We do some really kick-ass magic in this order, and it's as simple as that. It really isn't a difficult thing.
I think I'm going backward from the way most people go. They'll get into Wicker Magic and they'll get all the tools and all the supplies. And I just sort of started with myself and my own mind and imagination. But I'm finding I enjoy the focusing tools, that they can be handy, it can be fun, it can be beautiful, and it can also be powerful to light a candle or, to make yourself a mandala mindfully.
Yeah. Candle's an excellent focusing tool. I mean, every time you remember that the candle is lit, you're refocusing your intent. That's the intent part. Mm-hmm. You've got this idea, and this is this Abrahamic thing again. Ceremonial magic is basically a Christian tradition. It's all about invoking or evoking. Please, God, do this for me because I've been good, or if you don't do this for me, my friend God's going to do something to you. All the power is out there. Mm-hmm. Nobody sees it in here. It's viewing the world as this Newtonian machine, and all I have to do is pull the right lever, use the right word. This is why it spells this ancient Chaldean magic idea, to turn it on. I give birth to magic. This is me. I'm the transformer. I'm the floodgate. The energy pours through me. I put it out. I don't need anyone out there. It's the divine's part of me anyway. I put the energy out. And so this is a completely different way of looking at things, and a much simpler way of doing things. And Absolutely. It doesn't require, colored robes worn at the right hour of the day, and candles and things described on them, and reciting bad poetry and turning around 3 times and snapping your fingers. You just go, energy, go. I mean, it's as simple as that. Really, really simple stuff. And anyone can do it. You know, it's funny, we've got people coming into the mother house here all the time, and many, many people have told me, I don't have any psychic ability. I've never had a single person walk in the doors of this place that didn't walk out again without having psychic ability. Everybody has it. It's your birthright. It's your gift. It comes out in different ways. I mean, some people are really good at psychometry. Some people do tarot. There are all kinds of different ways of manifesting, and part of the fun is discovering what it is for you and how that works. Yes. But you got it. There's this thing I've been doing all over North America, but teaching classes, and I'll have 100 people in the class, and they'll say, who here doesn't have any psychic ability? A dozen hands will go up, and I'll choose one. I'll say, come forward, sit down. So you're telling me if I had a thought in my head about an object, you wouldn't be able to tell me what it is. And they sort of, okay. What I do is I have a bag with a thing in it. It's a different thing. Actually, several things, like in a little package in this bag. And what I'll say is, okay, sit down, close your eyes. And I've now removed 70% of your perception, because most people rely 70% every day on their sight and very little on the other senses. Now, I'm forcing you to focus on everything else. The other 5 senses. Yes, you heard me right. I said 5, because I'm including that psychic stuff. And what I'll now do is say, okay, now let's focus on what you can hear. You can hear my voice. You can hear the people shuffling in the background in the chairs and traffic. Let's focus on what you can smell. Let's focus on what you can feel, like the wind in your face and the sun or whatever it happens to be. And go through all of the others and get them now really focusing on that stuff. And then I'll turn to them and say, tell me the first color that comes into your head. Don't think about it. Just give me a color. Give me a second color if you can. Give me a shape. Give me a texture. What does it feel like if I touch this thing? Every single time they nail it. Every time. You'll get another, like a senior person to bring the bag over and pull the stuff out, and they do it every time. And the reason it works is because, well, the first time you saw a book and you opened it up, there's this collection of words that are absolutely meaningless to you. It's just, oh, what are these symbols? Until someone came along and say, each one of these is a letter, and it has a sound, and if you combine them, they're words, and if we line them all up, they become sentences, and suddenly now, when I open this, I'm opening my, on a world of meaning. It's the same thing. Within the pagan community, we're really good at teaching people to be sensitive to that psychic stuff. But we're really very, very poor at teaching them how to read it. We expect them to, now that we've got this connection, instantly understand what we're seeing. And it's a different way of looking. So what we need to do is break it down into simple parts and say, okay, never mind the whole thing. Just give me a piece of it. Just give me the color. Just give me the shape. And when you do that and you practice that, you start getting better and better at it. And suddenly, you get to a point where you can eventually look at it and encompass the whole thing all at once. This is the stuff that I'm talking about. Let's simplify it. Let's bring it down to basics. Let's present it in a form that makes it easy for people to understand and find that they really have had power all along.
Wow. I love it. I love all the energy work. I like the sense that warrior as well is not, like you keep saying about combat. You said something about it's about when they push, you pull, or you lean in, and when they pull, you push and or whatever. You just go with the flow of things. I really got that. And
people come to me all the time saying, I need to protect myself from negative energy. I'm going into a major gathering or something, and there's all of this stuff all around me. I had a gentleman just about a year ago who came to me, and I actually noticed he was very, very uncomfortable standing in the background looking at me with this expression like, I need to talk to you, but I'm not sure how to start. I'm very used to this. So I went over to him and said, hi, I'm Kerr. What's the problem? He had a natural psychic ability. He actually was starting to see nasty things that had happened, and then they did happen to people he knew. And so he didn't know how to turn this off. In fact, it was so strong that when he looked in the mirror, it was like pressing play. And the mirror happened to be the device that seemed to work as a portal to this. He'd taken all the mirrors out of his house. So then he figured, well, these people, these pagans, they have the ability to access this. Maybe if I hung out with them, they'd show me how to use it. Well, he'd been with the community for a little over a year. Nobody had done so. In fact, it had gotten worse. It seemed to him like all of these different aspects of the divine were trying to talk to him. Hi, I'm Thor. Do that. So I said, you know what? You naturally have this ability, but you have no access to it because nobody's shown you how to use it. We have to turn the volume down here because you're getting all this background stuff. You need to be able to control this thing. And inside of 2 days, we had him at the point where actually I'd done this class and I'd used a hand mirror as part of the thing, and I'd put it down. We were on a break. I was talking to everybody, and I look up, and he's looking in the mirror. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and he goes, yeah, okay, good. We're there, you know? I mean, that's another thing that we can do as a pagan community, as a Wiccan community, is show people how to access the stuff that everybody has inside of them, because it's a really useful thing. But it has, you know, it's going to be different for various different people. And that's good. We need to recognize that we're different, and that's okay. Different is really cool. You know, we don't want everyone in this uniform gray, the same thing. Mm-hmm. To celebrate this diversity that's part of the world, that chaos that I was talking about.
Nice. What should I read next, Kerr? You have a lot of books. It's a little overwhelming. I'm a little tempted to jump on to How to Be Glorious, a day-by-day guide to, I have it written down here, day-by-day empowerment or something like that.
Something I wrote for the greater world, not just pagans, to help them access some of these ideas we've been talking about. A lot of the energy work stuff that I've been talking about, we get into in Full Contact Magic, which is the book I wrote after Wiccan Warrior that you
That looks cool. Is that the one that talks a bit about quantum physics?
Yeah. There's a very strong element of quantum physics. Mm-hmm. Because we're discovering that there's this connection. You start breaking things down into smaller and smaller parts, and the parts start misbehaving. You get down to that Planck level of the basement level where you can't go down any further. And you're discovering that these particles also act as waves. And you can say, here it is, but I can't tell where it's going. Or I can tell where it's going, but I can't tell where it is. And they're constantly popping in and out of reality. It's this unified field that connects everything. And it's a field of ultimate potentiality. Yeah. Where what you see is what you intend. So there we go. That's magic we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So it very definitely relates to the kind of stuff that we've been talking about here, as far as magic is concerned.
It's kind of like the science behind magic.
Yeah.
For those of us that need a why, like I'm a why kind of person. Why does this work? How does this work? Let me take it apart.
If you want a really good example, there's a lady who's created this website. It's called the Intention Experiment.
Oh yes, Lynn McTaggart.
That's the one, and I mean that's a wonderful example, and I have actually put it to use on my own. I mean, I work in a dispatch center, and you've got all these dispatch screens, and you walk in, and it can be an absolute utter chaos when you're going in there on a Friday night. Everything is going crazy, and I'll sit down at one of those stations, and the person I'm taking over from is saying, "You sure you want to sit down here? This is a gong show." Inside of 30 minutes, sometimes 45, it's really chaotic. Here's channel 4, and they're going absolutely crazy. Channel 1's just a gong show. Channel 2 over here is just an absolute nut house. And mine is flat. It just calms down. You don't need a whole group of people like Lynn is encouraging people to do to create that effect, to put up that magical effect and grab control of something and calm it down. You can do it yourself. You have that. It's not a matter of Mickey Mouse standing on the peak with the planets whirling and the storm crashing around him in Fantasia, waving the magic wand, right? It's a very subtle, simple process where you reach out, go, that's it right there, and a little tug, and there's this chain reaction that goes off. It's finding the right current. I was starting to say, people come to me and they say they want this defensive stuff to protect themselves from energy. And it isn't a matter of putting up a wall, a ward, and keeping everything out. It's a matter of learning to swim. Martial artists would understand this. It isn't a matter of catching the person's punch and stopping it. It's tansao, you divert it, you know. You're taking their stuff, and that push, if they push, you pull, if you pull, you push, means you are moving energy. You're taking other energy from other sources and you're moving it around. You stop thinking of yourself as a source, a battery for energy, and start thinking of yourself as a transformer. You bring it in, you step it up, you send it out, you know, or you're the floodgate. You open it and you let it loose in the world. And that's a little bit different from the way things have traditionally been done in Wicca, but that's very definitely the way I view it, and it works very well.
Well, thank you for putting all of that into a book about Wicca. It's finally, like, clicked for me. I have so many Wiccan friends, and I don't have a lot of judgment on it at all. There's just things about it that I can't really accept or get into. The personified deity, a lot of the insistence on rituals being done a certain way and correspondences. And it was just enlightening and relieving and validating to read your book and be like, okay, well, he's a Wiccan and he's not saying all of this.
Ritual's a very important thing. I don't mean to suggest that it shouldn't be a part of magic. It doesn't need to be. But, I mean, ritual is what we use to reveal the mysteries, you know, of ourselves, of the world, to mark landmarks in our life, you know, birthdays and rites of passage and initiation and that sort of thing. It's a very powerful tool indeed, but you don't have to do ritual to do magic. And
or to do them in a specific way because somebody said so. I think there's so many ways to do ritual.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. There's any, I mean, and the limit is what the limits of your imagination, basically. You know, I'd rather
you said it's about creativity.
To call the quarters and didn't use the little card and, you know, the ritual that everyone's been doing for the last 40 years. I'd rather they went and spoke from here.
Yes.
You know, it's not about doing it from a book. It's about doing it from here. It's about speaking from the heart. You know, when people come to me and say, what's the word of God? I say, sit down and listen. You don't need me to tell you. You know, you have access to that. This isn't a congregational religion I'm talking about. This is a personal access. This is your path, you walk it. You know, that's what warrior is about.
Yeah, you say it's about creativity, that the Wiccan warrior's greatest gift is creativity.
That's a large part of it too, you know. I mean, however that happens for you, you have access to that and you can use it. And that's what we're trying to get people to do.
You are such a prolific writer that before I let you go, I have to ask you about, you know, you have this collection of nonfiction books that are educational, but I also see that you write fiction as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and is it magical?
It is. I write paranormal romance as Carrie Bryce because the odd thing is nobody thinks guys can write romance. I don't know why. It's actually fun. You go to a writers' conference for romance writers, and it works for me very well because there's no lineups for the guys for the men's room. There's not that many guys there. But yeah, there is magic in there. There is witches in the trilogy that I just wrote, the Darkman trilogy that I just finished. And I also write sword and sorcery fantasy as CANS. And I'm just working on the third book in the trilogy in that right now, the Purification trilogy. And that definitely has magic in it as well. So I have a lot of fun with that. It's one of those expressions of creativity that we were talking about. On my mother's side of the family, which is the side that goes back to William the Conqueror, everyone are artists. They all paint, they all draw, except for me. I can draw, but I don't choose to. I want to make it words. That's my form of creativity. But, you know, that's how it works for me.
And discipline. It takes a lot of discipline to write that many books.
Yeah, you know, there's no such thing as writer's block. It's a matter of sitting down and getting it done.
Yeah.
But has benefited from all this other stuff that I've done because I trust that I have that inside of me. Usually I'll sit down at a keyboard and I will not have any idea what's about to happen, but it does because I am quite comfortable with just opening the door and letting it come out, you know, and suddenly the characters are alive and they're talking and away we go. You know, everybody has access to something like that. However it manifests. It might not be writing or art or music, but there's all kinds of things you can do out there and be creative, and they're all valid.
Well, you're going to have to stick around after to give me the names of your different pen names so I can give people... Okay. I want to give people links so they can get to the rest of your work, because it's a little... I was trying to find it on Amazon, and I couldn't find you, and I'm like, dang, I want to read the rest of what he's written, so...
Well, I have websites for the paranormal romance or the fantasy. They're quite elaborate, so I will make sure that you get the links, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. Before I let you go, the theme of my website is how to create the kick-ass life of your dreams. So I have to ask you what your one tip is, whether a person is a Wiccan or a Muggle or whatever they are, for creating the kick-ass life of your dreams, specific to you.
Simple. Go out there and be glorious. Be glorious. That's the battle cry of the Knights Templar, actually, but we've taken that over for our order. Go out there and be glorious. I mean, instead of standing around and hoping that someday you could do something or that you would be able to do it, reach out for the stars. You know, carpe diem. That's what I'd say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kerr.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Much love. Peace.